Hello and welcome to the show. Previously, we'd been looking at educational ideas for beauty and skincare entrepreneurs so that they can produce content on Instagram, on podcasts, and YouTube. Although, if I remember correctly, I think we only handled the Instagram bit. So the last four, five, maybe 3 to 5 episodes had been about how we can create content, coming up with content ideas and a content schedule, a content calendar for entrepreneurs in the beauty and skincare space. Now, to make things real practical, I had used as a case study the businesswoman that I met, or rather, a number of businesswomen that I met earlier on in 2023. I think that was in March, April. That was the Brunch and Bond Abuja career and business networking group for women. So we're using one of their own businesses just to flesh things out and see how it applies. So I'll have to check my notes, but I think we're done with Instagram and we should be moving on to podcast content that can be created for these class of entrepreneurs. That's beauty and skincare entrepreneurs. However, today I would like to make a detour and give a couple of comments on more unhelpful content that I've been finding on social media. Because once in a while, I like to make comments or lend my own perspective on things that are going around on social media that I don't think are very helpful. Because people put out lots of these platitudes on social media that are not useful for personal development or for business development. But because they sound nice, because they sound kind, because they sound wise, or because they sound relatable or whatever, people think that they are useful for personal growth and business development. And so people lap up that kind of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, they end up causing more harm than good. Now, an example of that is a carousel post that I saw on Shyness. And this was put on LinkedIn, but obviously it was made for Instagram and then copied and pasted to LinkedIn. Now, first off, advice to those of us who like to repurpose content, because I'm sure you noticed that I make a podcast, I create some text to go along with it, and then I repurpose across different platforms. I put them up on LinkedIn. I also share on what's it called, Threads. I used to share on Twitter. You get the gist. But bottom line is this: when you are trying to repurpose your content that you have for different social media, then try to format the content properly for the medium. It's not a good idea to cut and paste something that was made for one format and then put in another format. So if you created something for Facebook, it's not a good idea to just copy that and then paste in LinkedIn, because the thing is, the Facebook crowd, well, first of all, certain kinds of topics would be much more popular there, and then certain ways of talking, certain terms, certain hashtags, things like that. So if you create Facebook content, it's not a wise idea to just automatically cut and then paste on LinkedIn and assume that that's going to do the trick. So what you should do is you create the thing for Facebook or for Instagram or whatever, and then now the time comes to share on LinkedIn. You should try and change the format, change the word count, change some language, do things like that, things that would make it appear that would make it much more native to the platform that you're pasting on. So that is actually what you should be doing when it comes to formatting content, and that's something that the individual should have done when they put up the carousel post on Shyness. Also, from a much more practical point of view, if you're going to take stuff that was made on, well, they didn't do this by the way, but just letting you guys know in case there are people here who are trying to repurpose video content. If you take something with the Reels logo, sorry, not with the Reels logo, with the TikTok logo, let's say you made it on TikTok and then you want to repurpose it on Instagram, what's it called, Instagram Reels, because it carries the TikTok logo, the algorithm is going to deprioritize that content. So, on a practical level, there are times that you can even get penalized for just moving things willy nilly from one social media platform to another without trying to format it properly. So, yeah, so that's just an intro. Let's not make the same mistake that this influencer, this social media guru did. Let's try and format appropriately to the social media the medium that we're trying to put the thing on. So you don't have to write something new, just tweak a little bit, and then it'll work well for both Instagram and LinkedIn. So on the video example, it's best to film on your camera using your camera app on your phone, and then you can upload to what's it called? You can upload to TikTok using the TikTok native editing features to edit the video. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Alarm was gone off. Okay, 5 minutes. All right. So you use the editing feature in TikTok to edit it and then post. And then for Instagram, you do the same, but you've gotten the raw format from your phone. Now, this individual was putting up several tips for overcoming shyness, and I don't think the tips were particularly helpful. In fact, they could cause some harm. Now, first off, the author failed to define what shyness is and to look at the central question of whether shyness is something that we have to overcome in the first place. If you've been following the whole debate about these sorts of things, you see that there are different perspectives. There are people like Oprah and people like Beyonce who like to put themselves in the what's that word? Introspected? No, introverted, yeah. They put themselves in the introverted, shy categories, and there are some people who think that shyness is not something to be overcome, and actually, it's not a problem at all. So it's not entirely a settled debate, and so I think if you're putting out content like that, before you start making people buy into this myth that the learned habits or personality types or whatever is a detriment or a disservice, it's nice to, I think, look into the whole span of the debate. So there are some people who think that certain personality quirks are fine and you don't need to get rid of them. So that's one thing that the person failed to tackle. Now, shyness. The definition for shyness that I'm going to use is the old definition and the definition that I think is the proper definition. Because some people think shyness, you don't like talking to people. Not necessarily. Shyness just means being self-conscious. There are some people who are very shy, but the tell signs are different. There are some people who are shy, and when they're in crowds, they shut down. There are other people who are shy, and then when they're in crowds, they just keep yapping. They won't stop talking. So you can't say that shyness means you don't like talking to people. So shyness just means being self-conscious, and then how people react to that is borne out in different ways. So this definition of shyness that people talk about being that you walk into the room and then you clam up, you don't talk to people. That's not how it works, because there are people that go through shyness the other way. They get into the room, they're shy, and they decide to be boisterous and talk the whole room down. That's their own way of talking, of coping with being self-conscious. So it's good to define that so we know, first of all, what kind of personality behaviors we're trying to correct, if at all these are behaviors that need to be corrected in the first place. Because sometimes I read some of these posts, and after you read it for a while, you wonder, like, what exactly does this person think shyness is, and you're not even sure. So let's be clear on our definitions. Now, shyness, being self-conscious. Is being self-conscious a problem? Well, it could be if it leads to unjust or unfair relationships, because some people are shy, and because of that, they're not going to stand up for what is fair, what is right, what is just. They're not going to say what their opinion is, things like that. So in those circumstances, then yes, because it leads to unjust or unfair relationships, and because it limits your career or business potential, then yes, shyness in that case is going to be a problem. But overall, overall, the biggest flaw of shyness, and that's something I want to point out, because people always look at it from the aspect of personal development and business development. But the biggest flaw of shyness is not that is not the career bit, but rather the biggest flaw of shyness is that it doesn't allow you to see your worth as a competent, creative child of God who has been invited into a ministry of co-creation in the world. Now, for those of you who are Christians, you get the gist of what I'm saying. If you're not a Christian, I guess that's a podcast topic for another episode. But that's the biggest flaw of shyness, actually. You don't see your worth as a competent, creative child of God. Now, how to overcome shyness? The person came up with some activities that are supposed to help us become less self-conscious. I hope you guys get that. The person came up with activities that are supposed to make us become less self-conscious, because shyness is being self-conscious. Unfortunately, most of the recommendations that this person gave, and lots of people give, even though they mean well when it comes to personal development and business development, it actually makes us pay more attention to ourselves to overcome shyness. And for someone who is on the more introverted spectrum, like I am, I can tell you firsthand that it's a very hard thing to do to try and overcome being self focused and shy by paying more attention to yourselves. It just makes the nerves even worse. Now, let's go into a couple of suggestions. The author's suggestions: get in shape, dress well. I'm sure you guys can see how it sounds good, it means well. But think about this: you have someone who already is insecure about how they look, how they stand, are they slouching, blah, blah, blah. And your solution is to get them to focus more on themselves when they already have insecurities. Now, what do you think? The young man feels insecure because he's lanky, or a lady feels insecure because she's overweight. You really think the solution is get them to become, to focus more on their bodies and start obsessing over the very things that are causing them the insecurities in the first place? I hope you guys can see how this is a recipe for disaster, because it can work, but the thing is, you're just creating a veneer and covering over the very insecurities that you're just trying to plaster over, in the first place. So, the guy might bulk up, but it still won't change the fact that he is unhappy or insecure about several aspects of his body or his personality. And the same thing with a woman. So she might feel somehow because she's overweight or too skinny, and then you get her to get the curves or you get her to shed the weight, but you really are just plastering over certain things, certain, what will I say, fundamental things that need to be addressed for true healing to occur and for true confidence and security to emerge. If you listen to people like Oprah, and there's this lady who acted in what's it called? See, Look Who's Talking, the one where the babies could talk, although the adults didn't know that the babies could talk. It's a really old movie. The lady was married to John Travolta. I can't remember her name, but she's battled with weight issues. So if you listen to Oprah, you listen to this lady, you get the gist of what it is that I'm trying to say. You can get the success, you can get the body, you can get the everything, but then there's still the nagging thing at the bottom that you haven't paid attention to. So get in shape, dress well. Sounds like good advice. Maybe it might work for a few people, but for most people, where there are more fundamental things going on, you are actually just creating a veneer and you're pushing the problem further down in the future. Doesn't mean that you're solving the problem. Then, suggestion number 2: take risks, believe in yourself. And of course, I hope you guys get what I'm trying to say. You're getting me, who is insecure, to focus more about myself when I already have doubts about my capabilities. So just simply declaring that you're going to take risks and believe in yourself, declaring is not going to solve any problem. Then again, another one was less planning, more action. Of course, you're getting me to focus more on myself, even though I am not sure exactly what it is that I'm supposed to do, which is why you will find that people who plan a lot do a lot of planning in the first place. It's because they're overcome by what should I do, what are the uncertainties, blah, blah, blah. You can't just simply declare that now is the time for action and then the problem is going to be solved. Then, another suggestion: put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Of course, again, the focus is on you, and there's no guidance on what kind of situation that you should be looking out for. Then, another suggestion: allow yourself to make mistakes. Again, it's more focus on myself. And of course, part of the very thing that shy, introverted individuals, well, some of them are worried about is because they don't want to look like a fool. So simply declaring that they should go out and make mistakes is not a solution to the problem. It's because I'm afraid of mistakes that I'm here sitting in the corner and not talking to anybody or not doing anything. So I can't just declare that I should go out and make mistakes and then the problem is solved. And then another suggestion was to give yourself credit. Of course, more focus on yourself. Well, of course, you wouldn't be in this situation if you knew how to give yourself credit in the first place. So just declaring that I'm going to start giving myself credit, or that young man, young woman, give yourself credit, is not going to solve this problem. Now, a lot of this content on social media, a lot of it is just platitudes, and these people are well-meaning. But let's face it, they are not professionally competent to be making these sorts of recommendations. Let's leave these things to the people who are well trained, to the psychologists, psychiatrists, psychoanalysts, psycho whatever. Forgive me, I'm not a professional here, but let's leave this to the professionals to say this is how we solve some of these problems. So these things are well-meaning, they're well-sounding, but the thing is, they just make the problem worse, and you're only getting people to try and muscle through. And the problem with muscling through is that eventually you fail because you're creating a veneer of confidence. So the same shy person is always there, which is the kind of thing that Oprah and the others talk about. So yes, you get the suit, and yes, you get the elocution, and then you get the body, and then you get the money and the all whatnot, and then you wonder why you step into a room, but then that feeling is still there. It's because you just muscled through. You created a veneer. You just plastered over the thing, but you haven't solved the problem. So please, those of you going around on social media putting up platitudes, stop with the platitudes. You're causing problems. Because young boys like me and young girls like you listening on the other end are listening to this thing. You just try and muscle through, and then you just defer the problem for later on down the line. Now, the ultimate solution is this. First off, okay, well, of course, we have to defer to those who have professional expertise. But then when it comes to the regular people, like you and I, people who don't have extreme personality issues or father wounds or mother wounds or trauma that we're dealing with, you have to realize that life is not all about you, and then you have to start paying attention to the external stuff. You come up with a principled and systematic plan for dealing with those external stuff. And what happens is that self-esteem and confidence grow the more you tackle external obstacles. So internal work is very helpful. Internal work helps, but internal work is the accelerator. It is not the starting. It's not the starting point. Now let me demonstrate that with a few examples. So get in shape and dress well. Yes. So most people should be doing this, and in fact, Nigerian doctors will recommend that for cardiovascular conditioning, you should be doing 30 minutes of walking every day. So it's something that my doctor harps on a lot, and I'm sure that if you live in Nigeria and you have a high BMI and you're dealing with blood pressure issues, I'm sure your doctor tells you that. Wake up in the morning, go outside of your estate, look to the left, walk 15 minutes, and then walk back. That's your exercise for the day. Or look to the right, walk 15 minutes, and then walk back. So, um, do that every day, yes, and you should dress well. But the thing is, when you are thinking about these sorts of things, like on the dress thing, don't be thinking about how you're going to enhance your personal sense of style. Don't focus on you. What can I do to enhance my style? What can I do to enhance this about me? What can I do to enhance that about me? Because you'll always be inward looking. But focus on dressing appropriately to the audience or to the context that you are walking into. That is a whole lot more helpful. If you're thinking, how can I best emphasize this about me, emphasize that about me, what is my best side, it is still me, 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 and you're playing up all your insecurities. But if you're thinking, I'm going for a meeting right now, and I am going to be addressing the Abuja Chamber of Commerce, you should be asking yourself, Abuja Chamber of Commerce, is there a dress code? How do those people dress? What does this kind of occasion require? And then you work your way backwards to see, okay, formal dressing. But formal dressing, I don't have any suits. I'll just do a traditional, because in this context, traditional dressing can also be formal dressing. So you see, you pay attention to what the external circumstances require, then work your way backwards, and then you're not in this nail-biting thing of thinking about me, 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 me. So what is the context that you're going to be walking into? It's a simple business development principle. You have to be other focused, and then you can make styling choices a whole lot easier, because it's not about you, it's about the context that you are heading into. And then that gets rid of all the internal angst that comes with trying to figure out what your personal sense of style is, how you should dress to be much more confident, what is a sophisticated woman supposed to look like, what is an assertive, powerful man supposed to look like, and all those. Yeah, those questions are important, but you'll be stuck in your head and it's you. But rather, you should be thinking, where's the context that I'm walking into, what is required? Then look at your wardrobe and then do it appropriately. That's the reason why I have no qualms walking into all these formal things wearing trad, because in this cultural context, traditional is also regarded as formal. So if it is formal, I can show up in trad. If they say it is black tie, then of course I have to call up my friend and say, "Oh boy, Alpha, are you and I still the same suit size?" And then worry about that, whether I can borrow a suit and then go for the occasion or not. So take risks and believe in yourself. People give this kind of advice, but they don't give you clear guidance on what kind of risks you should be taking. That is why I've been seeing lots of folks, even Nigerian people too. You go abroad and then you do bungee jumping and you talk about expanding your boundaries and learning yourself, embracing yourself, and dealing with fears and stuff like that. So yeah, bungee jumping, yeah, it's cool, nice adventure. But the thing is, there are already appropriate risks that are inherent in everyday business and career decisions. Everyday business, there are already risks. Career decisions, there are already risks. You really don't need to go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro or go bungee jumping or whatever because you're trying to break through and push your limits or something. Everyday business already has risks. So, what you need to do is to discover a career development system or a business development system that guides you on how to navigate those risks. So, for instance, basic sales or business development frameworks in dealing with business, you're first of all, you're always thinking of what's the outcome or the result that you want, who should you be talking to, what are the questions that you should ask, and then based on the answers that you get, what proposal should you make, what are the next steps that you take, those sorts of things. And this is a much more helpful approach in navigating life and business in general than walking around with a vague sense of risks that you should be exposing yourself to. If you're just asking yourself these basic questions, I'm heading to this meeting, I'm heading to this relationship, I'm heading into this, what is the outcome that I want? Who should I be talking to? What questions should I ask? What are the next steps we need to plot out? What's the worst that can happen? How do I make contingency plans for that? You are already coming up with a very common sense and practical way of dealing with risks that would occur. So yes, if you travel abroad and you can afford to go bungee jumping or climb Kilimanjaro, then yeah, by all means, do that. But you don't need to go hiking in the mountains in Abuja or Abeokuta or wherever you live to broaden yourself and learn how to take risks. Now, these sorts of things are nice. Mountain hiking in Abuja or Abeokuta is good. That's a cardiovascular workout right there. And of course, you get to network, you get to meet lots of interesting people. So by all means, do that. But don't think that is by doing all these arbitrary risks that you're going to expand into your fullest self and grow your business or expand your career. So that's not it. Do those things because they are fun. But when it comes to risk taking, don't worry. Career and business already have enough risks. Look for principled, systematic ways for dealing with these things. Follow through, and you'll be fine. Now, the whole advice on less planning, more action. If you take a systems approach or a principled approach to solving life and business problems, just like we explored earlier, you can see that the action you need to take is already inherently built into it. So telling someone to take action isn't helping because the person still doesn't know what the right action plans to take are. But if the person is a listener to this podcast and the person is taking sales development systems thinking with them, it emphasizes that we ask the right questions, we talk to the right people, things like that. So from talking to the right people and asking the right questions, the right options are clearly before us. So if I'm talking to the right person when trying to make a sale and asking the right questions, it is clear that option A might work, option B might work, or option C might work. Option A has different implications. Option B has a different price range, and option C might require authority from different kinds of people. And just by following the process, the next step to take becomes clear and is right before me. So stick to the process. Ensure that you ask the right questions, and you'll see that the right options fall in place. And it's now left to you to take what the reasonable step of action is, rather than telling somebody arbitrarily that, look, you've done enough planning, stop planning, take action. That's not helping. So, summary. When you focus on external people, focus on someone else. Focus on external situations, focus on the context. When you focus on external challenges, external goals, external obstacles, and you take a systems and principled approach to solving those problems, you will end up thinking less of yourself and you will become less shy because the objective is out there. The objective is not in you. That's the reason why Beyonce can say she is shy and she still gets the job done because every night she knows that the objective is out there, is the people in the stage. What do they need to see? What do they need to hear? What do we need to come up with that is going to give them a wow performance? Now, of course, she has to do that whole Sasha Fierce thing, create an alter ego, and blah blah blah. But you can see that what is causing the progress is not the Sasha Fierce alternative alter ego that she's coming up with. But of course, lots of us fall in love with these things. This basketballer, what was his name? I can't remember his name. Black Mamba, his Black Mamba alter ego. So we fall in love with these things, and we're trying to come up with fancy alter egos. Beyonce is Sasha Fierce, so I'll make my own Kemi Fierce. This guy is Black Mamba, so I'll make my own Gray Mamba or White Shadow or something. The alter ego is not the thing. So the basketballer, for him, he had a plan of going out every day, hitting the court, practice regimens, things like that, so that he can go out and get the best performance that was required for the game. And those are the sorts of things that I am talking about. So if you pay attention to the external situation, the external challenges, the situations, the goals, the obstacles, you get a system that works, you get principles that works, you're going to become more confident by default, because confidence comes from doing and following each step in the plan. It doesn't come from willing or from thinking or from forcing yourself. So confidence comes from doing. If you're paying attention to the external stuff, the shyness is going to take care of itself. Now, I'm talking about normal people. I'm not talking about people who have serious trauma like Oprah has, with the child abuse, with the baby that she had. And, so I'm not talking about people like that. So, I mean, folks like that, there's serious work you need to do. Talk to your medical doctor. Your medical doctor will tell you who you need to see. Whether you need to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a psychoanalyst or a whatever. But for ordinary folks, just paying attention to the external situation solves the problem. So, if you want to do all this internal stuff and come up with Sasha Fierce and White Mamba and force yourself to do this, yeah, sure, no problem. But the most important thing is if you're focusing on the external situation and then you're coming up with plans and systems for getting through all these things, then you become less shy over time because you're focusing less on you and your limitations. You're focusing more on the task at hand. Now, close to 30 minutes, so let me just wrap up. Please, guys, ignore all these platitudes on social media. They sound nice, but they are very unhelpful. So, look for people who have systems and who have principle based approaches for dealing with these problems, for dealing with these challenges, and for dealing with these goals. It doesn't have to be me. You don't have to adopt your own approach. But look for whoever it is who has a system that you fancy and you think you can gel with. You're going to make more progress with these kinds of people, people who have systems and principles behind what they preach, rather than just dressing your way to success or self-loving your way to prosperity and self-loving your way to confidence and confessing your way to confidence. So that's all for today, pretty much. So if you're shy, you're not going to get less shy by focusing more on you. Focus more on the situations that are external to you and you'll be fine. So that's all for today, folks. Remember to connect with me on WhatsApp. The number is 080-6466-2140. The country code is +234. And also connect with me on LinkedIn. The name is Tavishima Ayede. Don't worry about the spelling. You can confirm that from the link where you are listening to this episode, the website, or the podcast app where you are currently listening to my voice. So thanks for your time and attention. I will catch you guys at the next episode. And tomorrow we're going to continue with content ideas for entrepreneurs in the skin and beauty space who are catering to moms and kids. If you're not in that line of business, it's fine. You can use these principles that we'll discuss and use it to come up with your own ideas for content in your own business. So I'll catch you guys at the next episode.